Imagination.
And we are live again for another episode of Eavesdrop with the Gilded Sages. Can you move your phone out the camera, sir?
Oh yes, I
Yeah,
can.
no, not you. It was on the corner. You probably should take your phone. But welcome to another episode of Eavesdrop. Today we are going to be talking about how Black men navigate professionalism. And specifically, we'll be talking about in America because we are Americans.
That is
And
our
we don't,
experience.
yeah, and we don't necessarily have access to global communities as far as business. Or, I mean, if you had some, then yeah. But if y'all watching us right now, can you please actually hit the like button? That helps us out. Um, Helps us have these conversations at a different level and be able to bring more perspectives in as we just don't want to necessarily, keep talking about only our perspectives and how they relate, but we want to hear from other people. We like hearing from other people. So when you do get a chance, call in. We'll be having that open later. And today, I want to say we will be having a special guest come
Yes,
in
you
at
shall.
7:30. Our good brother, Mr. Derrick Colbert. I will introduce him when he comes on. But he's going to be adding to the conversation as well and talking about, Black men navigating professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
We're all professional men ourselves. And, this is going to go to, also the institutions that follow algorithmic behavior sets required for matriculation. We're going to talk about a little bit of that in terms of how people are. We always talk about over here playing the game and how
Mm-hmm.
that kind of has an effect on it. And then for us today, if you do get a chance to call in, we try to get to the core issues so that we can like actually address and solve some things as I think conversations are important. But the bigger question today is the way we've been navigating working? And if not, what are, I would say, a person's rebuttal to that? And if you do think so, I necessarily don't think so. But if you do, we will also like to hear a perspective on how you do think the way Black men are navigating the professional environment is working. I would love to hear that critique. And with, no further notice outside of introducing, as y'all already know, this is Inquisitive Q, housemate, and we have over here my brother Quan the poet.
Yo, yo, yo.
And so, with no further ado, we will jump into the conversation. And the first topic up is dress code. Today we chose to dress up a little snazzier than we usually do. I know I come in here in hoodies and whatnot.
This is actually how I used to have fun at Foggy Bottom.
But go ahead.
No. This is when McFadden's was. I didn't go to McFadden's. McFadden's is a perfect example of how white dudes get away with anything.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that as we were talking earlier, dressing professionally in the beltway is like a cloak. You get to do whatever you want because your personality is not mass, but you have the suit gives you credibility.
This is true, and and I'm glad you mentioned that because in terms of it giving us credibility, do you think, because a lot of people would argue on the other side of that, is you shouldn't have to, or it shouldn't necessarily be a requirement or a demand to be able to obtain certain
Yeah, I get you.
positions. But in terms of you making that point, that the suit is like a universal garment in the way that people from all different cultures wear them, as well as it being that thing that kind of absolves you from any, stigmas that may come from the cultural or what we would call ethnic clothing, and that goes for any other race or gender because we all know we have our cultures.
Yeah.
But what would you say to that in terms of the importance of Black men dressing the part? How would you say not dressing the part affects you? As well as, do you think it's valid to have to wear certain garments or look a certain way to navigate and matriculate within, America?
Okay, that's loaded. And
you can chop it up.
I got you. That's loaded, and it's not just for me; it's also for the audience. So I want to reiterate and make sure I clarify. Are you saying that you want me to express what having a suit does for the tropes and how it overcomes the tropes of being a Black American man inside of business, and how some people may see that as selling out, and other people may see that as that's what it takes to have economic access? Or is that what you're trying to say?
Yes.
That conversation?
Yes, that conversation, and if it actually even absolves the tropes.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I'll say this.
Go ahead, speak to it.
I think a lot of Black Americans need to accept one thing, and that many have accepted, James Baldwin and so forth, Langston Hughes, is that we are American. And so being American means that you belong to the Anglo-American economic system. What I mean by that is our legal code as well as our economic system is that of England, because our founding fathers were British rebels. And I always loved that. They were British rebels. What I mean by that, though, is that we inherit the images and the iconography of the West. So when you get in the 1990s, I'm going to get to my point. When you get into the 1990s, the image changes. Mm-hmm. When you get into the 1980s, after you have affirmative action, you have a lot of Black Americans who judge the Southern Church Leadership Commission, SCLC. No, SCLC. That's Martin Luther King. SNCC is
Southern Christian Leadership.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have that Southern Christian leadership with Martin Luther King, who was like, yeah, let's make sure we're presentable. The late John Lewis, let's make sure we're presentable. Being presentable means appealing to that Anglo-American business ideal. There's a movie, Five on the Black Hand Side, that talks about this, in which you have a father who is a conservative, but he lives inside this apartment with his son, who is, when you see this departure in the Black American community about what is credible and what is being real and authentic, because his son is more Afrocentric. So it depends on what time in America that we're talking, in what region we're talking. But long answer short, yes, it breeds credibility because it takes a certain level of discipline to get to interpersonal skills. And if you aren't used to wearing things that are uncomfortable, if you aren't used to literally having to wear an undershirt in DC summers because wearing a three-piece suit, you'd be so sweaty that you'd be unpresentable. You have to, once you begin to understand those nuances of time, the suit itself trains you how to interact with other people because you have that discipline of interacting with the suit. You have the discipline of interacting with other people. So the suit is an armor, not for you to protect yourself from other people, but to protect yourself within time and also look gorgeous in photos.
And I feel like that was a lot just now.
But
what I would say to that first is that I agree 100% in terms of those hot summers, in terms of being able to, again, I was that guy when my car didn't have air conditioning. I would drive to work before putting on my shirt because, as we all know, you will sweat that out. And I adopted the turtleneck. A lot of people say, "Oh, you so hot in the summer," and I wear turtlenecks. It's just a little sidebar and a side note because they still hold like that same level of polish look, that same level of elegance that people expect from a suit. But what people don't understand is, like you said, it saves time because you don't have to button up the whole shirt, put on a shirt, and then put on a tie and all of that. And turtlenecks are just like little regular t-shirts with a high collar. So they're a lot cooler than most people think, especially if you get them at a lighter weight.
You giving away the secrets.
Hey, it's all good, man. That's why, I asked the people to come over here. I'm going to give them a little something.
They got to get a little something, but they got to get some in person. We need some love, man.
Some super love.
We need some love.
Hit the share button. We need love. And reach out.
Like and share, man.
With that being said, because that was kind of just a sidebar.
I got you.
In terms of dress code, what I think a lot of people have to realize is that You know me, I'm not a person who necessarily cares for suits. I'll say that I wear suits when I want to. I would prefer not to have to wear them every day just because it's not necessarily my steez. But what I will say in terms of having to wear them, I think that they should be across all different cultures forced to wear them. Why? Because I feel like in a lot of different cases, people infer a lot of different things. Going back to that comment that
I have an idea. I'm gonna table it, but
yeah,
go ahead.
and so people infer a lot of different things that, like how you mentioned in terms of it helping mitigate some of those stigmas and some of those things, and one being discipline. Because what I'll say from wearing a suit is I don't think, really, to be honest, most people who are in the business world like to wear suits, but it does show that you are willing to go the next step to be able to commit, not only commit, but follow through.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, going throughout the whole day, interacting with people, having to do it in sometimes uncomfortable shoes as well, because dress shoes aren't necessarily comfortable, especially if you're moving around all the time.
That's what I think important.
Very important. But I think what happens is we have to also understand on the top end of that, because we have, like you said, when you talk about different generations coming into the conversation, I think what we have to do is have a respect for the suit, but also understand and be able to articulate to younger generations that the suit is not going to help you escape without anything else being able to be inserted into that. And what I mean is you also still have to work, as the suit is only an aesthetic, but then also getting, especially our older counterparts, to understand that just because you do these things do not mean that you will get the outputs of, or the outputs that you are perceived to get as a result of wearing a suit, because it doesn't necessarily play out in all cases in that way. Because we're talking about Black men, like you said, in terms of what was the story that you just used as an example, in terms of talking about how white men were able to get away with certain things in terms of not necessarily having to appeal to an aesthetic. And because now we're talking about, you mentioned the restaurant.
I got a bunch of restaurants going through my
I wanted to
right
say
now.
Maggiano's, but it wasn't Maggiano's.
It wasn't Maggiano's.
It was something else.
I don't do chain restaurants.
It was something else.
Fuck. Are you talking about a story I told you when I was
No,
there?
you just brought it up.
A
but it's
restaurant?
all good. Yeah, it's all
Chop
good.
House?
No.
I want some Chop House right now.
It's all good.
Meatloaf is everything.
But your point that you were making was the fact that
McFadden's. That was a bar.
McFadden's.
I was like, restaurant, that place was trash.
But the point that you were making is that other groups are allowed to not have to appeal to standards all of the time to be able to matriculate. And I think that's what has to be acknowledged on our end as Black men, but as an overall community, in terms of looking the part doesn't necessarily translate into matriculation.
I want to jump in on that one. So I'm going to clarify too. So you're saying that we should respect the suit, but not revere the suit.
Yes.
It's like, and I love that, because that's one of the things that I love about gangster culture. I ain't gonna lie. In gangster culture, I'm talking about America loves its rebels.
Yeah.
America loves its thugs. America loves its gangsters.
Infamous.
So what I mean by that is credibility. It's about what effort do you put in. If you're in a suit because the suit looks nice and you work out so the suit falls nice and you got enough money so the suit is tailored, that doesn't tell me that you have the effort to go through adversity. Because that's what suits do. Suits take a warrior and soften the warrior. And what I mean by warrior, I don't mean the blood and the glory. I just mean the person who prays for peace in the garden but is prepared for war at any given time. That's what we don't respect about our military tradition in America as well. Like, that's what the military does. Is the military dress code is one where it dictates a person's behavior. And because you're wearing certain things, you need to be mindful of certain things. And that's what I'm hearing from you. Is that just because a person wears a suit doesn't mean that they're mindful.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that they're resourceful. And we got to start using that language as well with it. It's like, just because you're wearing a suit doesn't mean you know the difference between cotton wool, merino wool, lamb's wool. I saw this one the other day. It's baby yak. I don't want to get it.
Who?
Baby yak. I'm talking about a different type of fabric. It's like, until you, and I'm that person. I know the difference between a quilt and a duvet. I know. Until we get into the point where people are talking about stemless flute, stem flute, and everything else, you don't know the level of specificity.
Specificity, I got you.
Forget that. I hate P, S, and when S, P, and C get together, it's like, nah, y'all can have your own little thing. When we don't get to being that particular about what it is you're asking for in your day-to-day life, you don't know what it is you need in your business life. This business is all about identifying a problem, making the connections, the social capital, and that's another reason why Black American men fail often inside of the professional environment, because we don't have the social capital amongst ourselves to start a firm in which we, as in mass, can bridge that gap between the white collar, which a suit really represents, and the blue collar, because we have to get, Kwame, you talk about this all the time, we have to understand, when we're talking about income and when we're talking about community, we're talking about money, right?
Mm-hmm.
If someone's making $150,000 a year welding, that means that person's hands is gorgeous, baby. That person's hands you can't replace. We have to get into the craftsmanship of what American tradition was. And that's also environmental. It's like, once we get into the craftsmanship of America again, we'll understand what Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. Stone the Road, you know that joint I'm talking about, Reconstruction, talks about with the old Negro and the new Negro. What happens with Black American men is that each generation will prove that it's more moral than its predecessor, instead of acknowledging the strength of the predecessor to move through what we have to move through and use that as value. It's like, no, I am not here asking for opportunity. I'm asking for an equitable opportunity, not because I believe I can do great. I do great because I come from a tradition of greatness. And that's when they stop, oh, you the uppity Negro and bougie. And it's like, no, stop using that language, because that's someone devaluing you.
Mm-hmm.
When someone devalues you by saying you're not allowed to say, I come from a history and a tradition of greatness, I come from a history and a tradition of people who have done their best to matriculate and be patriotic in America. And that's why I do believe that I am also worth funding in equitable systems and equitable education. Then you diminish the heritage that comes with me in this moment in time in my bloodline. And in America, that's against our tradition, because America is what? A land of what? Immigrants. And if we are a land of immigrants, then we also are a land of diasporas.
Which is true, indeed. But to pull it back all on
Pull it
us,
back in?
no.
Okay.
I'm about to bring up an article in terms of what it is we were talking about. About to share the screen. And this article is from The Atlantic. I don't know how to say this. Ada Harvey Wingfield. I hope I pronounced that person's name correctly. But this is just going to the conversation of what you said.
This zoom in for us.
Can I see?
It's better.
All right. This is just going into the conversation again, talking about, being a Black professor at a predominantly white university can just be just as uncomfortable, if not more so, than being a Black student at one. And I wanted to bring that up specifically because as we talk about dress code, we'll also be talking about, language next in the registrar in terms of how you have to have that capacity, because that goes into the work. I thought it was interesting that academics also have this same problem, because academics typically don't necessarily have to wear suits. Suits aren't necessarily, and the dress code isn't necessarily as stringent in that environment. But I thought that it was an interesting dynamic that you see it play out in a very different way. So this is to kind of move us into that conversation about language. but I took a few points, and then it says for faculty of color, similar processes are frequently at play. In fact, predominantly white colleges and universities may be even more reluctant to recruit and hire faculty of color than students of color. While students matriculate at an institution for a short period of time and then leave, the tenure system means the faculty of color may remain at a university for decades, even a lifetime. With this longer frame, these professors develop more of a stake in the school and may be more empowered to push for the reforms many colleges resist. As you move down a little bit further, though, it goes into for universities that sees no real change to their existing practices, traditions, and organizational cultures. Bringing in a critical mass of faculty of color is often a stated goal that never materializes. And we saw that also just recently happen with the Bank of America CEO making some comments about Black people not being able to rise to the occasion and then not being approved for him to meet his quota in terms of African Americans. And so that kind of speaks to that. But as we go down further, it says, indeed, when it comes to faculty diversity, the numbers suggest a pretty bleak picture. Blacks constitute less than 10% of the professoriate, and these numbers thin out the higher the academic rank. And there's a lot of research shows when these professors are in the numerical minority, their experiences aren't all that different from what Du Bois encountered as he attempted to navigate higher education in the early of 20th century, exclusion, marginalization, and the consistent message that as a Black person, he was not suited for the academy and that his ideas aren't welcome. So what I wanted to do, because you kind of alluded to it in terms of talking about it not necessarily meaning you can matriculate and then going back to the professors. And then you also mentioned briefly in terms of the generational difference in terms of how we're coming at this thing and why that matters. And I thought that it was interesting and very poignant that they pointed out the fact that what Black male professors are facing now is similar to that of what a W.E.B. Du Bois has faced. And so with that, I want to ask, before we move into specifically a conversation about the language, how or why do you think is the case that throughout the generations, because they were suited and booted back in the day, but they still haven't been able to matriculate, and we're still seeing reports such as this that we are, in the same situation?
I'm smiling because that article concretes what I understood like 10 years ago, when some people were like, oh, Dr. Horton, when I was in high school, was like, yeah, no, don't call me that. What a lot of people don't understand about academia is that academia was started especially by British gentlemen who wanted to prove that they knew a lot about the world, right? So being a professor is not only about, I have a credential. Being a professor that has some notoriety or that's notable, being a professor at that level is saying that I have observed something so great about the world that other people should follow my example. And what I mean by that is that the Ivory Tower has its traditions, and that's why I call it the Tower of London. And that's another reason why I play so many different jokes. But my point is that Dr. Toni Morrison, and this is my disappointment with Ta-Nehisi Coates as her protege, but Toni Morrison talked about William Faulkner in her dissertation. And William Faulkner talks about poverty in America. As I Lie Dying is one of his notable words. And why this is important is because when you look in America, poverty is not seen as acceptable or credible, or as a credible source for being successful, quote unquote. That rags to riches story in America cloaks a lot of hate towards poor people and what it means to be poor. So with Black academics, especially with W. Du Bois, if you look at his 1899 work, The Philadelphia Negro, which talks about the sociological study that was commissioned by Pennsylvania University to talk about Black women as domestic workers, especially when he talks about Dr. Porter, his autobiography on her damnation of years of a woman in 1900. In 1903, you have the Negro problem with W. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. What I'm basically saying is that this is so old. The argument that Black people are inferior and not able to keep up is so old. And it goes back to what I was saying about the predecessor. You have to acknowledge the pain of your ancestors, not only that they were brutalized, but the pain of your ancestors that they were not able to fulfill their potential as people. And that's one of the biggest problems with chattel slavery in its legacy is that economically we're not able to fulfill our potential as people. There's a lot of brilliant Black people who have died poor. And the problem with that is that there remains inside of the contracts and the contractualism in America that you have to be, and then Barack Obama, and I love Barack Obama, what Barack Obama needs is for America to stop needing him to be their dad. And I'm gonna say it again. What Barack Obama needs is for America to stop needing him to be their dad and let him be the father to the two children he sired and the husband to the woman that he decided to marry. And what I mean by that is that give him the freedom to express his entire humanity, because there's a lot that's being curtailed by the Obamas, and especially Barack Obama when we talk Black professionalism and having to deal with the double consciousness of America. Because what you have to do in America, and this goes back to James Baldwin's I Am Not Your Negro, and I'm going to end on this one. The Negro has to happen because if you're not a Negro, then you're a nigger. And the nigger is the enemy to white people. The Negro is the one that needs white people. So if we keep Black American men in an economically place in which they need white people or white money and white capital, then we could curtail the image of Black men to our favor. What I'm talking about is, 1915, Birth of a Nation.
Mm-hmm.
If we can criminalize them, then we can use that exemption in the 13th Amendment and keep them where we need them as cheap labor. So it makes it really easy for us to make money and make it seem like we're men who are geniuses because we make money when the environment is telling us just because you make money doesn't mean you're special. And that's where America is getting messed up. And America, and I'm gonna end on this one, honestly. Anglo-American capitalism is messed up because it's tied into this 19th century thought that having more material means that you're a great person.
So I agree with all of that. You just said, no, I appreciate it because I didn't disagree with anything along the line and along the course of what you were pretty much saying and going into in terms of talking about, us being dependent on capital as it feeds into the conversation of, are we navigating the right way?
No.
Are we seeing the fruits of our labor in terms of playing the game? But with that being said, because I want to be respectful of everybody's time, before we move on, I will tell y'all our guest is coming on at 7:30. His name is Derrick Colbert. And just a small brief introduction. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just wait until he get on the camera because I want to introduce the man properly because he deserves a proper introduction. So, man, everything that you just said was straight on point. I agree in terms of the fact of how the legacy has continued and how we are continuing to move in, similar direction and aren't necessarily seeing the results that we would like in terms of freeing ourselves from that Anglo-American capital to be able to produce anything. But with that being said, let me get our guy in here.
My bad, man. I was running on because it's like, that joint getting under my skin.
Hold on. That's a mute.
Is it something? Oh, damn. I'm sorry.
Good evening, kind sir. So,
can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yeah. We can hear you over here. You are good to
I
go.
I look a little blurry.
You look a little blurry, but we can still see you. Your beard looking sharp, your glasses looking nice.
Well, let me fix this up a little bit.
Okay.
There we go.
There we go.
Good. Hey, so we're gonna just jump you right in. Again, everybody, for if you watching, please like the video, share the video. This man has come over to, give us his time. We want his voice to touch as many people as possible, and hear this conversation, as we are two different generations and two, black men having a conversation about how it is that we're going to navigate business. But just a little bit about Derrick. He's a native Washingtonian and a lifelong Ward 8 resident, and knows for all of our DC people that is similar to how counties and districts work in other places. But he's also a devoted father, husband, brother, and community builder with 20 years of community, government, and small business development experience. He's a certified family development practitioner, certified fatherhood practitioner, and credentialed entrepreneurship and small business strategist. And so, without further ado, I want to give you the floor to be able to tell the people a little bit about yourself, or anything that I may have left off in that small, brief introduction before we get started. And you come out here and bless us with the advice and the conversation today.
First and foremost, I just say thank you to you and your co-host, man. It was good to see you, brothers. I truly honored to be a part of what y'all have going on, and also this honored to see that y'all utilize this platform to speak your truth. Because everyone in America, everyone in this world has their own truth, and it's a privilege, man, for me to be on y'all platform to speak my truth as y'all speak y'all truth. And if y'all know anything about me, I'm always telling people, man, to live their truth, right? Never allow anyone to tell your story for you. You always tell your own story, and always be comfortable with who you are. So that's just who I am. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm just looking forward to the conversation. So I'm here.
Pleasure to have you. So with that being said,
before that, I just wanted to say you are quite generous in that introduction, being on the platform, because one of the things that needs to be done before we get into the conversation and preface it is that we as Black American men do this amongst ourselves, hold ourselves accountable, and hold our ear and respect the elders who had to matriculate and how they survived, so that when you get game ahead of time, you know how to prepare for the things you're going to see. So I wanted to thank you for that introduction, and I'm glad that you're here.
No, and I appreciate you for bringing that in, because that's a very important thing. So with that being said, what we were just having a conversation about, we were talking about, over the course of time, the generations of Black men have experienced the same level of marginalization, the same struggles in terms of being able to navigate despite us playing into the game or actually following the rules, whether it be professionalism in business. And so the first question that I'll ask you is that, you being an older gentleman yourself, do you think that suits are necessary? That's the question that we asked each other earlier when we first started. And if so, do you think they help us matriculate in any way?
Well, I'm gonna answer that question like this, right? Our people, we have a history of liking fine things in life, the finer things in life. If you really trace back our history, we were the first ones to introduce silks. We were the first ones to introduce linen. We were the first ones to introduce gold, right? And if you look at the history of our people, we've always presented ourselves in a king or a royal state manner. So as we got here in America, and as suits got introduced, the European style of suits, how they got introduced, we just
fell out.
Yeah, yes, sound. Let me see. Hold on, your sound went out.
It was
There you go. There you go.
if it was based upon if it was a top piece or one piece and things like that as well. So I would say suits is not necessary, but suits really help. Suits help you to define your character as you look to grow in whatever professional arena that you are in. So I would answer that question that way. I would say that I believe that the clothes don't make the man make the clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you decide to wear, then you definitely can make sure that it fits your personality and fits who you are.
Okay. I can see that. And so jumping into the next question, I've had the pleasure of working alongside with you in certain capacities. So my next question to you is for younger, and this is for younger men in terms of how do you feel about, because everybody wants to make the money, whether it be in corporate institutions, whether it be in the streets, quote unquote, or rising up in society to become that quote unquote successful man, however one person might see that. But when we talk about being successful and obtaining uh, worldly wealth, and what would you say to, or would you prioritize integrity over money?
What is integrity though? What's your definition of integrity?
I think that's subjective. I don't necessarily.
I can give a definition to it.
You can go ahead.
Integrity is, and I love this about diplomacy, is trust but verified, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always see my words as credit. And we always say as a man, you are your words.
This is true.
My words is credit.
Mm-hmm.
So that means if you take me on my word, I owe you a debt. And my debt is my effort. And that's integrity. So I say I'm gonna be there at 9:00 a.m. I show up at 8:55.
Mm-hmm.
So I honk the horn at 9:00. That's integrity. So for me, it's like integrity goes with loyalty. So is your loyalty to the money, and therefore your integrity is with the money, or is your integrity with the community, therefore your loyalty is the community?
That's a great definition. I would say integrity is that, but also doing the right thing when no one is looking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say in the world of business, in the world of this being a professional and being a man, is doing the right thing at all times. To Q's point, a lot of times we feel like that if we get to the bag, then we doing the right thing. But a lot of times that bag is not the right bag for us, right? A lot of times we do a lot of things just for economic gain, and we lose our souls in the process. I'm the type of person I've never done anything for economic gain. It's always been about me doing the right thing because it was the right thing to do. And as I done the right thing, by me being the right thing to do, I was actually able to sustain where I'm at in life. I was actually able to grow. And people this day, when they pick up the
Where did you go? Oh no, we missing you. We missing your words.
Yeah.
Hopefully come back in.
Does he tap the screen again? Tap the speaker.
Oh.
Call him that he's going to deliver, and he's not going to compromise quality just because of quantity. He's not going to be someone that say he's going to do it, but he's going to cut corners. He's going to take the long road. I've been in this game for 20 plus years, and I have always taken the long road. I never been the one to actually try to cut corners, because I believe when you cut corners, you definitely don't give it your all. And a lot of times we have been programmed, right, to think, okay, well, if I just can do a little bit, well, why no one?
Oh man.
Why no one's what, man? I gotta follow up after this when we respond to
some garbage, right? And
hold on.
Can you back up just a little bit, because you went out and you was dropping knowledge and heat, so I want everybody to catch all of the heat.
Yeah.
Just maybe like 10 seconds back.
So I want to make sure we good.
We good over here. Your voice just went out. Your picture's still up.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So wow, I know I was on a roll. Where I stopped off at.
So you were talking about, and what I'll do is I'll help kind of move the conversation, because what you were getting into was a conversation about consistency.
Yeah.
You were talking about how that integrity is attached to consistency.
Yeah.
And I love that you were going there, because that's something that, again, you are true to that, and you do profess that. And it is one of the things that I also myself believe, in terms of, you have to not only do something, but be willing to do it over the course of time, because that's when you start to see produce and end results. Because like you said, people have a bad tendency to cut corners. And in terms of having a conversation about Black men navigating professionalism, there are cases where people cut corners. And going back to your initial point, when you mentioned the thing about suits not necessarily being necessary, but it's more about the man in the suit. And what I hear from you a lot in this conversation is that it's more about the creed and the build of the person and the man itself than it is about the actual environment that you're navigating. Because what happens is there are always things that are present to navigate. And I agree with that 100%, as we understand the society that we live in. And I'm a firm believer. I don't like to pass on certain behaviors to other people, because I think that's also something that we don't necessarily do, in blaming external sources for our shortcomings, which I think is an unfortunate cop-out in a lot of cases. But you wanted to say something before I ask him another question. Go ahead.
I want Derrick to finish, because what I don't know if I can call you Derrick, Mr. Colbert, or how.
Man, call me Derrick, man.
Because I'm a formal guy. But no, you want to roll, and because I know where I'm at, I want to hear that train of thought before I jump in.
So sticking with Devon's point to as being consistent, right? I believe that the only way that you truly are able to sustain what you are looking to build, you have to be consistent. You have to be able to walk in with a certain level of integrity, not chasing the bag, because people look at me, and I'm a stylish guy. I get that from my parents, right? But everyone felt like that my financial situations is something on a higher scale, and I laugh at a lot of that a lot of times, not knowing that by me being consistent, it got me to where I'm at today, right? It took me 20 years. It took me actually 20 years for me to really get to where I'm at today. And I knew coming into this game that I was going to have to build it brick by brick. And a lot of times folks don't want to take the long road. People want to take that shortcut. People want to say, just because I'm popular within my neighborhood, then I demand a $175,000 a year job, right? Not knowing that just because you're popular in your neighborhood doesn't mean that you laid the groundwork for you to be professional or being able to jump in.
Zoom, we're not friends. I know he's talking about professionalism, $175,000 a year job.
Mm-hmm.
Where we at with it, right? I see we having a little bit. There we go. I feel like you got to understand what it takes to be a professional. Yeah. I feel like you got to understand, just because you put on a nice suit doesn't mean that you're a professional. Just because you can articulate yourself well doesn't mean that you are professional. What have you really done? And what have you done to prove yourself in order for someone on this side of the fence that been in this game 20 plus years can take you seriously? And a lot of times we don't want to do that. You know, when I think about the flyer that you put together, I looked at that flyer. I'm looking at a Barack Obama. I'm looking at a Jay-Z. I'm looking at a Master P. I'm looking at I'm looking at all. I'm looking at a Cornel West. I'm looking at all the greats, right? That we look up to. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't know that it took them 20 plus years in order for the world to recognize who they are.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And we don't want to be consistent with that. We feel like, okay, well, just because I got a little buzz going on social media, my page is wide open, you know, so I got 3,000 followers. You see what I'm saying? I'm popping. No, that doesn't mean that you're popping. That means that everyone is in your business. You telling everyone your business, but you have not done anything for someone on this side of the fence to actually take you seriously enough. So that's what I'm always preaching. Like, what have you done? What dues have you paid? Just because you connected to a certain individual doesn't mean that you are guaranteed a seat at the table. Yeah. And if you sit at that table, what are you bringing to that table in order for you to be effective? Because every time I sit down at the table, I'm sitting down at the table and I'm bringing something to the table. I want to earn my way. When y'all look at me, y'all think, oh, well, this guy, you know, you ran off my bio 20 plus years. It took me 20 plus years for folks to start calling me Mr. Colbert. I earned that. And I'm willing to earn it every day. Just because folks call me Mr. Colbert now, that doesn't mean that I can stop. I can't stop now. I got to keep pushing. So I'm going to digress right there because I can go on and on about this.
How many times do I say it's suicide, bro?
I agree.
How many times do I say it's going to the line, coming back, going to the line, coming back, going to the line, and coming back? But my thing is, yeah, the longevity. What I hear from you is legacy longevity. That's important. That's what the value is. But my question was, and it's sitting on this, because this is how I center myself. I can say I'm fortunate enough to have a mother who was a professional, and she was a manager herself. Mm-hmm. So I got to see that lifestyle through her. And I got to see and have different opportunities that showed me that accomplishments is day to day. You don't accomplish in that moment that everyone is celebrating. You accomplish day to day.
Uh-huh.
So my question is, in taking the long road, have you found a level of emotional satisfaction of just doing the best you can within a day to achieve that long goal? And the reason I ask that question is because I find a lot of people give up. And it's like, you don't give up. You know, here's the thing. People give up because they think they're going to aspire to be, like you said, Mr. Colbert in 20 years and tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They give up. It's like, instead of worrying about how people respond to you, for me, I'm at the point emotionally, I want to feel so great that people don't know I failed. I want to feel so great in front of people, they don't know I failed. Only I know I failed. And if I'm the only person that know I failed to achieve what it is I wanted to, that means that I'm ahead of everybody because no one can tell me what I did wrong because they can't see it. So do you find emotional value in doing the due diligence to fail greatly?
I'm gonna answer that question like this, right? Mm-hmm. We talking about 20 years. Mm-hmm. I live my life in quarters, right? So I live my life in 4 quarters. So every quarter I stop and I evaluate where I'm at in life, right? Mm-hmm. I look at what I have accomplished. I look at what I have not accomplished. I look at who in my life that can benefit from me. I look at who's in my life that I can benefit from. I look at what I need to subtract from. Look at what I need to add to, right? So when you think about 20 years, think about them in quarters, right? So you have 5, 10, 15, 20. Every 5 years, I have redefined who I am. I have redefined who I am as a person and redefined who I am as a professional, right? When you speak about failures, people think, okay, well, y'all see me in a certain light. But a lot of times, the wisdom that I possess have came through my failures. I'm the type of person that I'm not afraid to fail because I feel like you learn the most from failing, right? So I'm willing to actually try something, and if it doesn't work, I'm going back to the drawing board and trying to figure out exactly why it didn't work. You know, when I'm doing business consulting work, and I'm having conversations with entrepreneurs and budding small business owners, I asked this question, like, are you afraid of the word no? You know, and a lot of time folks say, yeah. I'm like, why are you afraid of the word no? Because I have heard no so many times, and every time I heard the word no, it made me sharpen my skills that much more, right? I'm not afraid of the word no. I'm not afraid of failing, because I feel like when you fail and when you hear the word no, you should go back to the drawing board, go back into the lab, and try to figure out exactly how can you get to that word yes, right? Emotional satisfaction. I get satisfied by knowing that I proved myself right and I proved everyone else wrong, right?
Got you.
Coming into this, right? I'm from Ward 8, born and raised in Ward 8, been in Ward 8 my whole entire life. I'm still gonna own property here in Ward 8 until the day that I die, right? Growing up, I heard nothing comes good from out of Ward 8. And for a long period of time, I kind of believed that until I said, you know something, I'm great. I ain't good, I'm great. So let me show the city and let me show the world that I'm great. You know, just because, and my mom, this quote that my mom told me years ago stick with me to this day. She said, boy, never allow your zip code to define you. You define your zip code, right? So I get emotional satisfaction by showing other people that all that stuff that y'all have said, all the negative things that y'all have said about Ward 8, look at us, right? Look at me, look at Devon, look at you, Q, look at us, right? Look at us. We great people, and not only us, but a whole bunch of other people here in Ward 8 are great as well, right? So we gonna show y'all, just because we come from a different class than y'all, right? That we are capable enough playing on the same field as you, and actually we're gonna perform 10 times as better as you because we have spent time and time sharpening our skills, waiting to get in the game, you know, waiting to get in the game. And that's what I don't see from this generation a lot, right? They don't stop and shop. They don't take time to actually practice and sharpen their skills because they thinking, okay, well, I'm just gonna jump in the game. I'm gonna learn the game as I go. No, sit on the side. There's nothing wrong with sitting on the sidelines and studying the game. It's nothing wrong with getting up early in the morning and practicing and honing your skills, because trust and believe, you're gonna get your shot. You're gonna get your opportunity to get on the court and get in the game. And what you gonna do when you get in that game?
Yeah.
Are you going to turn the ball over, or are you going to take that ball and put some points on the scoreboard? So the answer to your question is emotional satisfaction for me comes when I put points on the scoreboard.
Gotcha.
Put points on the scoreboard. Points on the scoreboard is everything that I care about, because the more points that I put on the scoreboard, the better my stock is, right? Because we all are commodities. And I don't care how you look at it, we all are commodities, right? We are human capital to corporations' bottom line. So they invest in us, right? We are investments, right? So they invest in us. So for me, I look at it as I gotta make sure I keep my stock going up and up and up and up and up and up and up, right? Because when people look at me, they're gonna say, "Oh yeah, that's a good investment." So yeah, you're investing in me, but I'm investing in you as well, because I'm gonna get inside your corporation and I'm gonna learn everything that I need to learn. You know, if you think about a Bob Johnson, if you think about a Percy Miller, when you think about a Sean Carter, you think about a Magic Johnson, you think about a Chris Gardner, right? Chris Gardner is one of my favorite people in the world of business, because Chris Gardner's story is a very remarkable story, right? I know y'all know who Chris Gardner is. He's the guy that Will Smith played in The Pursuit of Happiness. So Chris Gardner story is a remarkable story, because he struggled. He became homeless. You know, he saw his opportunity, and he chased that opportunity down until he got it, and he did not stop until he got that opportunity. And when he got his opportunity, he learned everything that he needed to learn from the corporate world, and he actually left that corporate job and started his own. And he's one of the most successful investment brokerage firms inside of the world, a black man still true to who he is and understand exactly the struggle, and every opportunity that he gets, he goes back and gives it to the next generation. So emotional satisfaction comes from me is putting points on the scoreboard and giving it back to the next generation, not only the next generation, but my peers as well, right? That's still on the track of becoming successful. So that's emotional satisfaction for me.
Okay, thank you. I love that.
No, that was a great answer. It was a lot in that in terms of, again, just gems and nuggets drop and moving forward. You mentioned, though, in talking about being able to assess from the sideline. You know me. One of my things that I typically am trying to work on is, I've been a person who may think and assess too much, right? And so when you talk about that, though, I like the idea of assessing. As I'm trying to get out of that, I would love to hear what you have to say about as we sit and assess this whole game, as we sit and assess everything that is turning in the society, whether it be corporate institutions, political institutions. What do you feel, or do you feel as though we are navigating appropriately? And if so or not, what changes would you like to see made in terms of Black men, in terms of how we're navigating these institutions? And that's coming from just watching from the sidelines. I think is a very important thing, because I will agree with you in that my generation moves very, very fast, in that we don't value reflection, and that we don't necessarily value what comes along and what comes from sitting still. As I'm always preaching sitting still, and a lot of people think that when I say sit still, I'm talking about inaction. But what I'm more so talking about is being able to, like you mentioned, being able to sit, really get a scope, focus on it, and then also be able to come back with the game plan. Because right now we have taken the blueprints from past and just kind of thrown and cherry picked which ones we like and don't like. And so now we're just kind of doing and mimicking without actually sitting and reflecting on what it is we are mimicking. So again, what do you think? What adjustments do you think we can make in terms of how we navigate? And what have you also experienced in your own navigation that you would have maybe adjusted if you had knowledge beforehand?
That's a great question.
So that's a great question. It's a very loaded question, right?
That is a great question.
So I'm going to start. I'm going to ask this question like this. I'm going to start off like this. I feel like not only for your generation, but for my generation as well, because I'm only probably about 10, 14 years old, right? So we still kind of in age, right? I feel like we got to understand that just because our ancestors built this country doesn't mean that corporate America owe us anything, right? It doesn't mean that anyone owes us anything, right? Because they did what they did, and we are where we are at, right? But also on top of that as well is the thing is we also have to understand that just because you are a Black in here in America doesn't give you the right to go inside someone's corporation and demand a management job right off the bucks, right? Especially if you don't understand that industry or that marketplace, right? Then on top of that, we got to understand that it's the old saying, the old cliche, you got to crawl before you walk, right? And a lot of times we don't want to crawl. We feel like we need to walk first, just because of the fact that who we are, right? Because we got street cred, people know us, we didn't help this person, we didn't help that person. But by you doing that, like, what truly qualifies you, right? For me, I have always started from the bottom. For me, I take pride in starting from the bottom, right? And because I feel like when you start from the bottom, you really understand the whole entire landscape of the arena that you are going into, right? And a lot of times people don't want to start at the bottom. People don't want to start at the bottom. People want to start at the top and feel like you know, or they want to start in the middle and feel like in 6 months they should be at the top. And when you start at the bottom, you earn your way. It's something about earning your way that truly, you know, make people respect you more than versus you actually getting it just like that, right? Or just because you know someone, you immediately ascends to the top. But for me, what I have learned is, or what I have seen is, when you earn your way, you get that respect, and you are able to stay in the game, have the longevity, you know, in the game, because people know you for your work, and people know that you're gonna get the job done. So as it relates to navigating, I think that we still have a ways to go, because I don't think that we truly understand the corporate landscape right here in America. I don't feel like that we truly understand the political landscape here in America, right? I feel like that we know a little bit about it, but when I speak about understanding, I'm talking about the foundation. Like what's the foundation of corporate America? Like, what's the foundation of politics here in the United States of America? Like, what's the foundation of politics within your community? Like, what's the foundation? And a lot of times, I feel like people don't understand the foundation enough in order for them to be able to navigate. I feel like people want to come in and just say, okay, well, I see this third floor of this apartment building, so now I want to build an additional seven floors on these 3 floors. Now understanding, like, what is the foundation? Does the foundation truly support an additional 4 floors, or do the foundation only support an additional 1 floor? But how do you truly, like, what's your blueprint on building that 4th floor though? And I feel like we don't have blueprints, right? I feel like that we just say, okay, well, we see the problem, or we see the perceived problem, and we just want to jump in and say, you know something, I want to jump in because I feel like I have a great idea to fix this right here, not truly understanding the foundation. So I would say, before we really start trying to say that we navigating, understand the foundation. Like truly take your time to study the foundation, right? Truly understand the foundation. For me, it always been about me understanding the foundation. Me sitting back and I'm learning from the elders. I'm having conversations with the elders. I'm having conversation with people that's already in the game, or already in the arena, or already in the industry that I'm looking to go into, and having conversations with them, and leading from a humble standpoint, saying, you have more knowledge than me, you have more wisdom than me, you have more understanding than me. How can you help me navigate this right here, right? I feel like that too many times us as Black men, we allow our pride to get in the way of saying, okay, well, I don't want to reach out and ask such and such for help, because if I ask them for help, then they're gonna feel like, you know, I don't know anything, or they smarter than me. Yeah, they probably a little bit more smarter than you in that arena, but they not. But that doesn't mean that you can't ask for that help and build yourself up to that point, right? I feel like when we talking about navigation, we got to be able to understand, okay, well, who's going to help you navigate along the way? You can't navigate this thing along the way. There's a lot of people that helped this guy Derrick Colbert out, right? It's a lot of people. There's a lot of people still helping me out to this day. I haven't got to where I'm at in my point of my career, in my life, and all the things that I'm doing. You see what I'm saying? Without help, I still get help to this day. But I know who I need to get help from, and I know who I don't need to get help from. And that's the key right there. So when you're talking about navigation, you know, understanding the foundation is the key and the starting point to be able to navigate.
Okay, so I wanted to jump in there and just clarify. So what I hear from you is that knowing the foundation where you want to go gives you the structure to navigate the structure of where you want to go. and listening to other people enables you to value wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I would agree that, and I think that's what Black Americans need to admit, that they're Americans. America does not like to value wisdom or age. In America, being old is this passe thing, whereas to me, because I like to expand my imagination or anything else, age is a right. You have to earn being old.
I agree.
Like, you don't just get to be old.
It's survival.
You have to earn it.
It's survival.
You have to earn it, and it's a day-to-day thing. And what I'm hearing from you, Derrick, is that you have to earn the things you want. And I talk about that all the time. It's like, especially when it comes down to dating, and I don't want to necessarily go there because I don't know where you're going, but when it comes down to dating, a lot of people don't understand it's the day-to-day. I need to deal with your personality day-to-day, and on those days I can't deal with your personality, we got to go our separate ways, because we're not going to build a house and pay it off within 2 years. That's not most Black Americans' life. We're going to have to build a house, live in the house as we pay the house off, and still be together throughout all those years. So we're not just committing to 5, 10, 15. Like, the word mortgage literally means death pledge. Literally means death pledge. If you're going to be in a mortgage with someone, that means you're not worried about that house for you two. You have bought that house for the next generation. And I don't think a lot of Black Americans and Americans view marriage that way in collaboration. And that's where I think the professional environment has cultivated this idea that everyone can live as a rich executive.
Yeah. And I think for me, that's the only thing I wouldn't even necessarily say push back on. But for me, in terms of mentioning like continuously starting over from the mud, that's one thing that I personally would like to see change, as I know most of us have done so and have had to do so. But I think we're having this conversation right here, right now, because we don't want to see that continue to happen, in terms of whether it be you, Derrick, Quan, or myself having to navigate these things with no guidance, no presence, again, I would have appreciated even if somebody gave me half of a blueprint or something to work with, because in a lot of our, lives, it's you really just stumble and you go, and like you said, you naturally learn who and where to take and access information, and you just get smarter and stronger along the way. But I would, for me, love to see an environment where there is, again, a community, but also a pipeline of how we are passing down not only the wisdom, but like you said, the capital resources, the professional relationships, and helping people learn how to manage those. Because part of I think a drawback is in terms of moving people around in that way is, one, I don't think us as Black men get enough times to fail, as it goes to that conversation that you were having in terms about people. It feeds into that insecurity because people don't necessarily have the capacity to withstand it. And again, I'm not making necessarily an excuse for it, but that is an element. That is an element that is there. And so what I would love to see is that, again, we have these institutions, whether they be just the family, because those are things that we have to build upon. Like, we had the conversation about the gender truths, and I'm for that, because I don't think that we as families, the Black community doesn't exist first without Black family, and those families coming together to make that overall community. Mm-hmm. And that comes down with passing down all of those resources, whether they be intangible or tangible. And that's the only thing that I would add to that, in terms of being able to access or have access to people like yourself. Because like you said, it takes help. Mm-hmm. It takes help. And for me, statistically, I want to change certain narratives and certain numbers, because right now, unfortunately, the failure rate is way higher than in terms of the success rate, as we are, unfortunately, those who made it and those who continue to strive and make it. And that's something that I hold myself to and try to do, in terms of being able to, be able to be here or there for whoever it is, whether it be my son, whether it be y'all, or whether it just be random people, and just having those conversations with people and trying to spark a light. And that's how I try to be a benefit to people in just my little everyday kind of way, and just helping people out the best way I know how. Like, I love politics and fashion and other things like that. If people reach out to me, I never have had an issue with, in terms of, if I have the capacity to do so, people know. If I can do it and the time allows me to, I'm with it. Especially if you show me love in past, because I think what has to also happen is we have to get to what he touched on, is that reciprocation too.
I was going to say reciprocity.
Exactly, because what happens is we talk about abuse in the community, and I don't think we talk about abuse from the professional side of, helping those who helped you and being able and being willing. I don't think I ever told you this.
When you speak about abuse, kind of expound upon that, though.
Got you. And so when I'm talking about abuse professionally, what I'm getting at is you have situations where, let's say for myself, if I am extracting, whether it be your wisdom, whether it be your access, whether it be you helping me do a resume or anything that you're good at, I have to reciprocate that in any way that I can possibly. Because again, we also don't necessarily have the same skill sets, but it becomes abusive when, say, that person who has helped lift you up reaches out to come back down and help build that unit. You begin, like you said, with the integrity. You don't necessarily keep that level of consistency. And of course, I'm leaving room for a person just not being able to do it. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like a person actively, what we call ghosting,
reneging,
reneging, and just actively removing yourself from a situation after you've extracted something from somebody. And in short, we can just sum it up to selfishness, the very high levels of narcissistic selfishness that doesn't necessarily work for the overall collective. And people are abusive and have the tendency to be abusive in that way. And even in some ways where it's just like, again, you don't have to, it can be just as something as simple as a person, again, reaching out to you for emotional confidence. I'm not saying that it has to be an equal exact exchange, but there has to be some reciprocity throughout that chain of transaction.
I agree wholeheartedly, right? But also a piece to that is that for whatever reason, and for whatever reason, we as a community as a whole has allowed situations and circumstances to forget the not only the family unit but the community unity as well, right? Mm-hmm. And what I see when you're talking about Black men navigating professionalism, right? What I see is that we have adopted the Viking ways, right? Mm-hmm. And what I mean by the Viking ways is that we did that. Okay, well, I see a part of I see some land over there that has some cows and some milk and honey over there. So I'm going to go ravish that land and take from that land and go about my business, not knowing that if you were to just stop for a second and had a conversation with that landowner, right? That landowner could have helped you actually be able to farm your own land and actually been able to actually help you birth some of your own cows and things like that as well, to actually be able to help you sustain and grow, so you don't have to keep having a mindset of taking, right? And I feel like that a lot of times we have adopted that mindset that just because I see that Devon is more successful than me, then I'm going to get in with him and take from him and try to drain his well dry and drain his land dry and move on to the next thing, not knowing that that's not only hurting Devon, but that's hurting the whole entire community as well. So when we talk about being Black professional men, we got to understand that unity is at the core of all of that, right? And until we understand that, until we put that back into the equation, we gonna keep having these level of conversations, you know. And on top of that, accountability. A lot of times when you're talking about Black men being able to navigate professionalism, we don't want to be held accountable, you know. I've been married for 21 years, going on 22 years, right? I have been held accountable my whole entire journey, right? You know, and I'm okay with being held accountable. Being doing this community work and doing this business development work, doing this political work for going on 21 years, I had to be held accountable, right? And being held accountable is not saying, okay, I don't want to hear what you have to say to me. Is you sitting right there, you taking that constructive criticism and you taking that and you building upon it. We don't want to be held accountable because for whatever reason, when we feel like we are being held accountable, we feel like someone is demeaning us, right? Oh, and it's not like you are not being demeaned, you are being held accountable based upon the things that you said that you was going to do. And I feel like that's at the core of being a Black professional as well, like accountability. You can't worry about what the next person didn't do or what the next person did. Focus on self. Like focus on self. And when you focus on self, then you know, then you have I feel like you have an obligation to help someone else along the way as well. But for whatever reason, we felt like that we didn't struggle, we didn't work hard to get where we at. So I'm not going to give anyone else my secrets to where I got to, right? Because I feel like if I give you my secrets, then you're gonna be able to push me off. No. What did I do for you? I gave you a full-fledged blueprint, and I said, you know something, I see now it's time for me to move on to something else. So now I done moved on to something else, right? And I was able to help you come up as well, like you have done other people as well. And I'm just use you as an example because we right here on this platform, but that's been with countless of other people as well. And people has done that for me. I feel like us as Black professionals, we have fought so hard to get where we at, and we don't want to let go. We are afraid of letting go. And when you are afraid of letting go of something, you know, you not only hurt yourself, but you hurt the whole entire plan as well. Like you hurt the whole entire community as well. And you stop the growth of the next generation that can come behind you, you know, because you want to hold on to it because you built it, or you want to hold on to it because you redefined it for whatever reason. Like, no, do what you need to do in that season and move out the way and help let someone else come and help that person along the way as well. But the other piece to that is that I want to say before we move off this particular topic is like the person that's coming behind me got to have an open mind of learning as well, right? You can't come in thinking that you know it all. You know, you can't come in thinking that you know it all. You can't come in thinking, oh, I need to get this OG out this way. I need to get this old time out the way. I need to get this person out the way because I can do it better than him, right? Yeah, you're going to do it better than me. You're going to do it better than me, right? But the thing is, I still have the institutional knowledge that you need in order for you to be able to navigate, because we're talking about navigation, in order for you to navigate so you can be successful all the way around the board, you know? So that piece right there, I think, is critical as well, because a lot of times we don't want to accept help because for whatever reason, whatever happened to us in our childhood, right? We feel like, okay, well, I don't want nobody telling me what I need to be doing because I heard my whole entire life I had someone tell me what I need to be doing. So now I'm big enough, I'm strong enough, I'm wise enough. So I'm gonna do this on my own now. Until you get slapped upside the head, until you fall on your face, you know, until you lose that opportunity or blow that opportunity, then you come back around and ask for help again, right? And that happens a lot. But on that piece right there has been like for the elders, right? The elders can't say I told you so. The elders got to be able to say, you know something, yeah, I see how you feel. come on, come in here, brush yourself off, you know, clean yourself up. Let's have an honest conversation on how we're gonna get you back on track. Because for me, I have a lot of friends, I have a lot of mentors from different nationalities, right? And I see how they do it. You know, I see how they do it. They don't chastise in public, right? They're gonna chastise in private, right? They gonna lift you up in public, but they're gonna tear you down in private, right? But the tearing down is not to crucify you, it's to help build you up. And we got to get back to that, because we were once doing that, right? We got to get back to that, and that's how we help each other navigate this thing, because we have so many different elements that's coming against us that don't want us in positions, you see what I'm saying, to thrive and to help someone else, right? You know, and on top of that, just because I'm in a position, that doesn't mean that I gotta walk around and have and tell corporate America I got a whole bunch of street cred. You know, just because I got street cred, that's for you and I to know. They ain't for the whole entire world to know, right? Because now I'm in this a different arena. So what I need you to do is I need you to understand the arena that I'm playing in now and help me be able to be successful in this arena and help me navigate it, so I can be able to help bring you on as well and bring the next person on as well, right? Without you coming in and saying, you know something, I'm D from the block and I got all the street cred, so therefore I deserve to be here. Like, no, leave that over there. Let's get this corporate money and let's really, you know, open up opportunities for our people. So that's what it's all about. It ain't about everybody saying that, you know, I'm cool, I need to be here and this and that. It's about understanding how the game is played, mastering the game, and giving the game to somebody else and helping that person navigate as well.
Boom, bro. Thank you for that. Because what I want to tie in is that is exactly how I feel about social capital. I talk about all the time, like, I can say I lived that life. Honestly, I can honestly say that my pediatrician was black. The people who pick me up, the mechanics that I know in the shop I go to is black. Charter buses pick me up in front of my grant when we were living with Bert. On Channel 1, they were black. It's like when you have a good social capital and people who understand what you're coming from, a lot of that shame and guilt. Remember, I be saying in the black community, there's a lot of shame and guilt that keep us from connecting and being vulnerable. That's exactly why I'm agreeing with Derrick and saying we got to have those off-camera conversations. But that's, again, that means we can't allow for a Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion to rise when we had Felicia Rashad's. We can't. What the problem I feel like is that we got away from the 90s. The 90s had everything. You could have had a Little Kim as you had a Tribe Called Quest. You had the spectrum in the 90s. We were
just flat.
Exactly. In the market, you had to, in the 90s, they commanded. And this is what I love about, like, T.C. Carson on Living Single. When I go, it's like we had images of black people who not only had that I know what it is I come from, legacy, but I also know that this is not the place for it. Going back with the corporation, a lot of because you know we had beef in a group chat. It's like I was like, I'm not doing this because I don't respect a lot of Black American men professionals because they do exactly what you talk about. They get in a position and they stay on base. It's like playing baseball. They stay on base. So the only way you as a young Black American man can make it is that you gotta make it, you gotta hit a home run. You gotta smack it out of the park so that the older black dude feels comfortable enough to run the rest of the bases. So each time you go up to the plate, you gotta think, I gotta knock this out the park while I don't eat. But when you think about, when you got an older black dude that's on first base, like the pitch ain't paying attention, I mean still second, both of y'all on the same team now. Because the older black dude that's on first base is keeping the pitcher honest and aware that he not in my pocket. I gotta be honest with myself and like this dude has value, and this is what I'm getting to. We don't preach value into our children before we teach them how the world will devalue them. I'll say it again. We don't preach value into our children before we teach them how the world will devalue them. What I'm saying is that We teach a young black man how police interact with him. We'll teach a young black woman how black men will interact with them, or how the world sexualizes them. But we don't tell them you are valuable first. Children need to be protected from racism and sexism.
Yeah.
Children need to know I am valuable. So when they encounter racism, they're going like, hold on. You trying to devalue me. You trying to dehumanize me.
Versus it being normalized.
And versus it being normalized and they expect it. They need to go like, this is possible. But in their heads, they need to know like, this is wrong. And in our generation, I feel like people, they glorify the brutality.
I agree. Because a lot
They
of
love to
people
sell it. And that's why you get that corporation. They're willing to get the corporations because I agree with you. They're willing to get the corporations like, oh yeah, because I went through this, I deserve this. And it's like, you don't understand time. And I'm gonna jump off my soapbox after this. Like, you knew I grew up in the board. I grew up in the board of elections.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to see what election cycles are like as a referee, and what it really takes to go through an election cycle, you restructure your time differently. And what a lot of people don't understand is that they want the autonomy of the elders, the freedom of the elders. But I always say, the higher the autonomy, the higher the responsibility. If you can't get your chores done, you can't fucking play.
I agree 100%. And because, we are approaching time, what I want to... No, you good, fam. This is a wonderful conversation. I am rather pleased at how this conversation went. We heard a lot of great stuff from everybody today. But do you have any last words that you want to give the people? If y'all are watching, his IG is The Strategist. Again, he's very active in the community. If you're here in Washington, D.C., especially Ward 8, I'm sure you probably already know. So,
especially if y'all been doing something.
So I'll let you in with any last words that you wanted to get off before you left us today. And I just want to say, as a host, thank you for coming out. Thank you for having this conversation. Thank you for blessing us, and thank you for being able to be an example and trying to, I always talk about helping build that bridge between the generations. I know we're not far apart, but, the ideology changes so quick these days. It's always good to get the insight and perspective from people who may have experienced the world very different from theirs, and has been able to matriculate steadfast, and again, not only be successful in his career, but go on to do the civic duties that we all are required to do as Americans within a democracy, because that's what democracy is about. It is about every individual being responsible in that way. And so I just want to say thank you to you. And you can go ahead, with that being said, give us any last words you want the people to hear.
So first and foremost, like I started off by saying, I'm going to give it right back to you, and also Q as well.
Oh man, you hold on for me, bro. You your sound blocked out.
I feel like it's the ghost of J. Edgar Hoover. Like, oh, niggas getting together nicely. Getting out his ass.
The sound is kind of going in and out, so I know y'all. No, so I feel like I learned from everyone around me, right? Especially the young guns, right? The young builders. I like to call y'all young builders because I consider myself a builder, right? When you talk about being that bridge, back some years ago when I ran for the Ward 8 Dems presidency, I had a slate called the Bridge Builders, right? Because I believe in building bridges. And I believe the more bridges you build, the stronger the community become. And not only that, but the stronger the city become, and the stronger the world becomes as well, right? So my last words would be, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid of the unknown. Don't be afraid of taking your time and truly learning the foundation of whatever that you want to jump into, right? Because if you don't take time to do your homework, if you don't take time to build upon the things that have came before you, if you don't take time to really understand and truly, truly understand where you want to go at in life, then you're going to spin your wheels the majority of your life trying to get where you want to get to. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask yourself the tough questions, right? Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to go in them dark places and them dark rooms that you have, for whatever reason, suppressed deep down in your mind that you don't want to take a look at. But go into them dark places, go into them dark rooms and develop yourself from that. Because when you develop yourself from them dark places, then you become whole. You become whole. And when you become whole, you become prosperous. And when you become prosperous, you become unstoppable. So no, I don't have all the financial wealth in the world, right? But I consider myself wealthy because I have went into them dark places and I have developed myself and my skills for me to be where I said at today. The wealth gonna come. I didn't have the wealth, I didn't lose wealth, I didn't gain wealth again, right? So wealth gonna come. I don't chase wealth. I chase the opportunity.
The opportunity. He'll chase wealth. He chases the opportunity.
You don't cut corners. Don't half-ass at it. Get to it. Develop yourself. Knock that task out of the park and trust and believe that next opportunity that come your way gonna be 5 times greater than the opportunity that you felt like wasn't the right fit for you. So build upon that foundation and don't build them floors without understanding what's the foundation of that building right there. So thank you guys again for having me. I look forward to continue to promote you guys, to participate with you guys on y'all platform. And I'm here to support in any way that I can. God bless y'all. God bless y'all family. God bless DC, and God bless you, the United States of America.
Love it. Thank you. Yes. Have a nice evening, man.
Enjoy the fam. Much love. Let's see. All right, there we go. And so I'm gonna need you to back up a little bit. I got my shape up in the shot. All that, put your whole body in there. But before we get on out, because we're about to finish up, I just felt like the conversation was going well, so I just kind of let it go.
Yeah.
It was a nice conversation. I appreciated that. I feel like everybody was having fun in the midst of that. But I just wanted to get into one last article before we stepped off, because I also wanted to be fair, and I felt like that was just such a great.
It was a great conversation.
Dynamic, man. Again, that's
a lot of value there.
That's Colbert, man. Colbert is cool, active in the community, man. And look, that's how I know when I'm telling people that we got to be civically engaged. It's people who I know that time is just taken by a lot of different things, and people still make time to do their civic duty. So no, I'll be the bad guy. I don't want to hear it. This is a standard that we have to start imposing. I don't care what you do. I'm not saying you got to do it the same pace that everybody. Everybody got their own pace, but you got to do something.
People need to know you.
It's a very precarious situation, and a very important one in terms of being active in that way. We need every single body, every single person, and that just goes to it. So no excuses, people. We are now. This is just before we head on out. If you're still watching, can you like the video, share the video? Do we have any comments?
We got comments.
That's why I was in the shoot so much. We got some.
And it's all good, man. If that's a good thing, Mr. Shape Up. It's all good, man. It's all good.
All I can say is shout out to Jimba G.
Thank you, Sam.
And shout out to, I don't want to get it wrong, Say Latre, leader of ADOS African Black Solutions.
Hey,
we got a whole lot of
ADOS fan.
Good dialogue.
Appreciate all our ADOS.
So
we got to do one day. We gonna have to do a video of why we support ADOS.
Okay.
Just off the street.
I'm gonna give ADOS also my critiques on the people that follow them. the people that follow ADOS, and I'll say it now, so that
let's save it.
No, I'm just gonna give her a preference.
Gotcha.
So, you know me, I like the jump. It's like ADOS has a great mission, it's great focus, it knows what it wants, it's ready, it's great in its demands, it's doing what Derrick just said as far as doing the due diligence. The followers of ADOS need to tone down the aggression that they have.
That's where the hierarchy comes into place.
It's like, yeah, you don't have that acumen, so you need to tone that down.
I love hierarchy.
You gotta tone that down. You're not that guy. You're not that woman. You're not a vet. You're not tone. You need.
Because I was about to say, for me, it's all about principle.
Yeah.
Because I don't like if I'm under the principle, I ain't gonna say nothing because I know me saying something.
I will step off from the principle though.
No, you can step off. That's more respectful though than putting the principal in a situation that they have to argue away certain things because it just takes time. You gotta set the principle up for the alley-oop, man. It's more like bloop, slam dunk. But no, like
when you give them finger rolls and they still just treat you wrong, you gotta go like, yeah, no, I'm not with it.
That's the DNC. That's another conversation for another day, as you know. But we are here. So right now, this is the Harvard Business Review. And we're talking about Black male professional men still. And so it says in white male dominated professions like law, engineering, medicine, Black men are the majority because of their gender, but in the minority due to their race. Consequently, they occupy a somewhat contradictory position where they simultaneously fit in even if they stand out. It's not quite the token experience that Rosabeth Moss-Cantor describes in her classic study of women working in male-dominated spaces. Those women, mostly white, were constantly reminded of the ways they stood out, faced the paradox of visibility and invisibility, and were relegated to gender-type positions as secretaries or wives, even when they were high-ranking executives. Black men's experiences in these type of environments are a bit more complicated. As you move down further, we get to, yet with so few other Black professional men being in these spaces, opportunities to bond and form allegiances are often infrequent. Still, these types of relationships that Black men have with other men can be drastically different depending on their occupation. In a forthcoming book on Black workers in the healthcare industry, I show that while Black men working in male-dominated field of medicine find it much easier to connect with white colleagues, Black men working in the female-dominated profession of nursing face extensive barriers in their attempts to forge ties with white men they encounter at work. They struggle to bond with white men who rarely seemed interested in connecting and often stymied their efforts to advance. As Curtis, an orthopedic nurse, told me, it's almost like you have to take your ideas and give them to somebody else and let them present them for you. So with that being said, I'll end that right there. But I wanted to have a quick discussion about, we hear a lot about, Black women being unprotected and, we get the numbers for Black women, but I don't think enough conversation is had how I think they did a good job in pointing out that contradictory relationship that we have because we are, a lot of people say patriarchy, but, my response to that is like, look, I don't benefit as a Black man from the patriarchy in the way that a white man or white woman benefits from. So with that being said, when we talk about that contradictory effort and you come to the end of that and he says the piece about, it's almost like you have to present or give it to somebody else to present it as I can personally say I've been in situations where I've spoken things and then they were said and then adhered to. And I think going back to our conversation with Derrick in terms of those insecurities and being secretive, and how we treat each other. I think that also plays into it because I think a lot of Black men have experienced that. But what can you add to in terms of that contradictory nature of being part of the quote unquote patriarchy, but also being part of the minority and that you're still a Black man and how that affects navigating?
Yes. That goes into the stigma again, like I was saying about the birth of the nation and the tropes of America. We talk about Sally Hemings, right? But we don't talk about her brother James Hemings, who eventually was a cook and committed suicide. I'm talking about Thomas Jefferson. And why I bring that up is that if you look at the literature surrounding a lot of black men, a lot of black American men lose themselves in their ego because they know that they're capable, but they're not given the economic access to prove their capabilities. I'll rephrase that or place that differently. A lot of black American men feel like they're stifled because in America, because they don't have what white Anglo-Saxon Protestants have. And the encapsulate what I'm talking about is August Wilson Spencer's.
Mm-hmm.
The father argues and fights to be a driver instead of just picking up trash. Eventually, he gets to drive the truck, but now he holds back his wife and he holds back his son. So what it means is that a lot of black American men starve of the people of their dreams so that they can have their efforts go to their dream. And what I mean by that is that when we get inside of the professional environment, so PWIs, predominantly white institutions, a lot of black people, I say this all the time, they feed into what they think white people think blackness is.
Mm-hmm.
And I have told you repeatedly, you know my life, and you didn't see the range in most of my life, right? I am respected for being who I am because no matter what I do, it's black. But when you get inside of those professional arenas, you also have to understand you're not dealing with just white people. You're dealing with a certain type of white person inside of corporations. And that's when we say the quote-unquote white devil, whereas someone in blue collar may say the man. And we have to understand the mindset of those in corporate America are not the mindset of white people. And we have to, again, how I say, what is a white person? It's institutional people. And what I'm getting down to is that when black American men,
there's some black white people.
Yeah, when black American men enter corporations, they have to understand the isolation and the solitude that comes with people who don't believe that they belong there. And the traps of being the quote unquote, and this is where black American women get it right. It's like that black angry woman. We gotta push against that narrative. Harris even faced that. You have to push against what people say about you. And that's why it becomes important about what you disclose, and more importantly, who you validate as being quote unquote authentic. I say all the time, too many black people want white acceptance.
This is true.
I say it all the time. Too many black people want white acceptance. And it's like once you want to be accepted by white people just cause, they lose respect for you. Why? Because they're human.
And now they know they can do it.
They're human. So it's like if you stand for something, they're gonna go like, all right, cool. You stand for something. And it's not because you stand for something because you're black. It's because you have integrity. Because a lot of things that we call black as being two-faced, Janus and everything else, is really just us being human. Now I gotta step out and get my ribs. Hello?
Look at this man.
Yeah.
Fancy. Goddamn rib going, goddamn man. But what he was basically getting to is the idea and focus in and around how I always say I don't necessarily like the saying, what do people say? Black people can't be racist. And what my response to that is in talking about navigating, corporate America and business and professionalism, what I think we have to understand is what he was talking about was the institutional procedure and the behavioral algorithms that are in place that produce a certain outcome and is rewarded when you do it in a particular way. But that reward in itself undermines not only the health of the individual, which is what he's talking about in terms of being recluse and having to understand that you're going to have to be recluse in a lot of ways, is because you're in a hostile environment that though you as an individual exist in, you are participating in a series of behaviors, institutional behaviors that are there to produce and in most cases keep you out, which is why usually the resentment follows in terms of you shouldn't be here. Because again, we have set up these lines of protocols and procedures and ways to marginalize and stifle you. And so what I'll say to people who say that we can't be racist as black people is I would, just take this as thought, right? a lot of people talk about racism, but what I would say is think about it in terms of just race. America founded race, not racism. Racism is a result of the construct of race. So when you are calling yourself black or even white, you're talking about terms that were invented to justify slavery. So when you self-identify in that way, which is again why I like the ADOS movement, um, it deconstructs race in itself because it removes the foundational moniker that was given to describe us as African American people. Um, and it allows us to, again, have more clarity in terms of how we're moving, who's moving what way, and how we're navigating to get to a lot of these issues that require more aggregated data, which isn't necessarily present because we're talking about solutions and how do we navigate moving forward is also a part of this conversation. I think that is something to take away in the fact that we have to understand that, look, on the flyer, I put Daniel Cameron for that reason. It's like I understand that he may be a quote unquote sellout, or again, whether it be Obama, whether it be Jay-Z, Cornel West. What I wanted to illustrate through that was that I don't necessarily agree with a lot of them, and some of them I do, in terms of how they move or navigate. But I think what was more important in trying to illustrate through that was that when you're talking about Black men navigating, you're talking about Black men playing a game that to be successful, quote unquote, you're doing it at the expense of the overall collective. If, like we were talking about earlier, if you're just doing it for the bag without any integrity attached to it, because you have to, like we mentioned earlier, you have to understand the foundation. You have to understand what it is you're navigating, who has created the maze in which you're navigating, or however you want to, conceptualize that, whether it be algorithms, mazes, or so on and so forth. But you have to understand who did it and why it was constructed in the first place when you talk about things like that. And I think we will understand it better if we just acknowledge the fact that no, Black people do not have institutional power, which is very true. But we give buffer, we give cover, and we also give our capital to institutions that may bring harm to us collectively. I hope that makes sense to all watching. And I just wanted to touch on that a little bit just because I felt like, a lot of Black men catch a lot of flack and, for being toxic or sometimes exhibiting traits that are quote unquote deemed as aggressive, but more so just being assertive. But again, that goes back to the narratives and the tropes. But what I will say to that is, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to wish everybody a good evening. If you're still watching, like the video, share the video, and we will definitely get back to the comments. Video bomb.